May 5th, and you're at the Jivamaya Yoga Wisdom Talks. And this afternoon, we have the esteemed honor of welcoming Amadea Morningstar, who for many of us is a hero because she allowed us to sort of feel not quite so clumsy in the kitchen as we were learning the principles of Ayurveda and how they look at food and diet, etc. And just to give you a little bit of a brief, 1980s is really when Dr. Ladd and Dr. Vasant Ladd and Dr. Fowley started bringing this or started introducing this new medicine into this culture, which is no easy feat. And Amadea's first book, which I have right here, which is Ayurvedic, the Ayurvedic Cookbook. I can't find myself here. There we go. The Ayurvedic Cookbook was published in 1992, followed up and that was co-authored with Urmila Desai. And then in 1995, she followed up with her own Ayurvedic Cooking for Westerners. And bless her heart, I was so happy to get this book because I was so confused as I was learning Ayurveda, and there were very few books out there to help us. So Amadea rapidly became a heroine. And then I remember in the Nama, which was on the Queen Mary, she had this amazing CD, and I just asked her what the name of it was. It was Smooth Mama Does Ayurvedic Cooking on the Fly. And it was hysterical. There was wit and wisdom, and it was so much fun, and it just made everything a little bit easier. Then in 2018, I happened to be at the Ayurvedic Institute, and who was there but Amadea Morningstar? And she said, I've got a new book. And I said, oh, exciting, yay. And she handed it to me, and I was like, oh, it's all drinks. And we sat down and we started talking about it. And I thought, the intuition of this woman is phenomenal. This is the most beautiful book. I hope everyone will get it. It's just so gorgeous. So let me introduce, without further ado, because I know we all would like to hear from her, Amadea Morningstar, and we thank you so much for being here. It's a delight. I'd like to jump right in with question number one, and that is, when we begin to learn about Ayurveda, when we come to the subject of food, the first word out of any teacher's mouth is digestion. And it is so prime and so key to the Ayurvedic understanding of health. Could you elaborate? Just elaborate on that. Could you explain why digestion is just so very, very important to maintain balance and to our health?
Gladly, Abaya. And I just also want to really thank you for being here, because the lineup of women that you've been interviewing in these wisdom talks is just outstanding. And so to be a part of this flotillion feels just really like an honor. People oftentimes come to me. I still see people in my office in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Not now. Right now, I'm seeing people just at a distance. And yet the first thing that oftentimes brings people to see me is digestive issues. And that's whether or not they're interested in Ayurveda. They sense that it's like, wait a minute, something's off. My metabolism isn't what it should be. I'm feeling like I'm not digesting as easily as I could. What's going on here? And as you said, from an Ayurvedic perspective, digestion is the gateway to our whole well-being and health. And it's like, if we digest well, then the nutrients can flow easily to every tissue, including to our psyche and our mind. If our digestion is slow, we may feel foggy or sluggish or stagnant, or food may feel like it just sits there. Among the many wonderful women you've interviewed so far, I think the very first one was with Jutta Hecht, and she talked about how Ayurveda is all about rhythm. And I really appreciated that, because there's a rhythm of the seasons, and there's a rhythm of the elements. We're heading now in the northern hemisphere more to fire coming up in terms of sun.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
I'm well aware, it's like, especially you, say in Las Vegas, Nevada. And yet in this rhythm of the seasons, digestive fire, which is the key, what's also known as Agni, digestive fire, which is the hydrochloric acid that's created in the stomach. It's also the digestive enzymes that are made in the small intestine and the pancreas. It's the bile that's created in the liver and stored in the gallbladder. All of those components of Agni, digestive fire, tend to have their own rhythm. And unlike what you'd think, the Agni, digestive fire, does not follow the rhythm of fire and the seasons. Ironically, the opposite happens. It's like we have our strongest fire when we're heading into winter. Then we're like squirrels kind of gathering our nuts at that point. And that the digestive fire helps us get through winter and store strongly. And yet what happens that, and as we head from about March on, really April, the digestive fire starts to slump. And so we don't have as strong an appetite as we head into hot summer. And yet sometimes we'll think, well, heavens, fire is strong in the atmosphere. It should be strong in my belly. And yet the opposite is happening. It's like the fire is peaking in the temperature, and yet in our own bodies, it's slumping. And so there's different strategies for working with that as we head into summer. And each of us is a little bit different, and we each work with that differently. One of the other things to be aware of is that in our body's mission to keep cool, there's two ways that we keep cool. We're kind of like swamp coolers in a certain way. We sweat and we drink fluids. And so those are kind of the two basic ways that we ventilate our own temperature. And that will work well for a certain period of time as we head into summer. And yet at a certain point, as the digestive fire drops even lower, what can happen is that the more fluids we drink, kind of the more sluggish we feel. So while fluid is important, especially clear fluid to build digestive fire at this point, there's a balance where we really have to track ourselves. And thirst will let us know. Thirst and appetite are ways to let us know what's going on. So for example, appetite is one of the key indicators of digestive fire. If our appetite is strong, then our digestive fire is likely to be strong. If our appetite starts waning, it's also letting us know that our digestive fire needs support. There's different ways to strengthen this fire. One is through spices, and Ayurveda is big on skillful use of herbs and spices. If we have a more airy, light, kind of gassy metabolism, actually sour foods are going to strengthen our digestive fire more than almost anything. So a little bit of lime and water, or macrobiotics would have us do umeboshi plum, but different kinds of sour are going to help harmonize that kind of that gassy light quality. Whereas if we're more fiery, we really need the bitter tastes, and something like the classic cumin, coriander, fennel tea, or variations on that can really help calm the pitta while strengthening the Agni. Similarly, CCFT, cumin, coriander, fennel, equal parts, is a good one for people who are more earthy, because it has some pungency, it has some bitterness, it can lighten things up in a good way. Dr. Ladd, I know at one point you mentioned something like this. Dr. Ladd had several ways to support Agni immediately in the moment. He said if you were tired and hungry, to lie down, first drink half a glass of hot water, lie down on your left side, and just poop out, just nap for 10 minutes. If when you get up you feel great, and hungry, then go for it. But maybe it will have passed. But he said if you're hungry and restless, you're not going to have the patience to do something like that. And instead, go take a walk for 10 minutes before the meal. And that's walking is literally a way to also build fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh. So right now in this time that we're living in, which is a very interesting time for all of us, and it is triggering many, many things within us, within seconds of each other, within minutes of each other. um, the possibility or the probability of eating on an emotional level is really kind of strong. So I'm wondering if you could address, from the perspective of Ayurveda, what would those emotions be telling us in regard to our inner balance?
Yeah, that's a gorgeous question, Abaya. Um, the, the first thing is, if we can take our responses as information rather than as recrimination,
Uh-huh.
because so many things are happening right now, and there's so many different things to deal with. So many of us have had our routines are shot, our associations are shifted, our resources have been vastly shifted, and um, because of that, our responses are going to be sometimes really naked and vulnerable, and we need to have patience with ourselves. And we all have all five elements inside, and we all have the three biological doshas, known as vata, pitta, and kapha, in different balances. And depending on how we're responding in the moment, we can gather information about what needs to be helped now. um, so for example, um, ideally, if the doshas are working really well together, we're grounded, flexible, and also creative. It's like all those things, just like, yes. However, lots of times we're not hitting that right now. I mean, there's so much to deal with that grounded, flexible, and creative is not the story. Some of the things that can happen if we're feeling fairly airy is we may be really worried or scared. And that was especially early on in this, there you could see a lot of air. Now we're heading more toward fire. But
Yeah.
but there's there was an ungrounded, fearful, worried quality. And that still can come up for any of us, depending on whether we have to face a grocery store or what our loved one is doing in terms of occupation, or, all of those things. Um, and some of the ways that airy quality can also show up is feeling scattered or rushed, or not wanting to sit down to a meal, or skipping a meal. All of those things would be like, wait, we've got to settle and ground. And um, I think about I used to teach a lot of cooking classes, a lot of different places, and sometimes those would be industrial kitchens. Other times it, might be a Girl Scout camp with a one sink and, one burner. Um, and in order to be able to ground and focus on what I needed to do, which was about food, um, I had physical allies. And the two things I would bring with me were my apron and my cutting board.
Oh, I
And
love.
it's like, and I think of us at home now, similarly, it's a little bit like, okay, I'm ready to make something. I'm going to wash my hands and, like, put up my hair. There's signs, it's sort of like, there was another, like, someone, there was a health person that was saying, if you want to take a walk, put your walking shoes on. So similarly, it's like, to get yourself settled and grounded to be able to cook or eat, just there's some simple rituals. On the energetic level, um, Indu talked a lot about some wonderful ways to ground, and a very simple one with breath and touch would just be, before you begin, just taking a breath in and then taking a longer breath out. So there's, on each level we can begin to ground, but the rush, the hurry, the wanting to kind of speed through meals, um, we need to work with time and space. So it's like, okay, I'm going to sit here for at least 15 minutes, and I'm going to chew. Now, so that's one issue, but somebody else, someone with a fair amount of fire, doesn't have those issues at all. They're like, it's like, wait a minute, I'm starving, I'm hungry. There's no takeout I can grab right this minute, or it's going to be such a long line that, I'm going to, be half dead in my car by the time I get through. And, um, and for those people, which I put myself among those,
Right.
three meals a day or else, um, for those people, I would say it's really, I talk about the dolphin approach. Um, the dolphins learn best when they get at least twice as much positive feedback as negative feedback. And when our fire is high, it's easy to be critical, either of ourselves or others. And so I would invite us to think, I'm passionate and hungry, not, I'm an idiot. You know? Um, and along these lines, there may be a need for more convenience food than the perfect control of Ayurveda. Like the idea that there's a perfect Ayurvedic diet. In these times, I would rather see people well fed than eating perfectly. I see it as kind of a landscape. If we can get 75, 80%, and our bodies will let us know, because if they're digesting well, we're going to not have gas. We're going to have energy. We're going to feel good. But so some of those things, like it might be a veggie, you might have on hand some veggie burgers or some organic canned beans, or there different things that when the fire is high, you just can go and get something easily, rather than wait, I've got to make this pot of dal from scratch every single day. Similarly, control wise, I mean, fire is all about control, and there's a lot not right now.
Yeah.
And going to earth, when we're feeling strong in our earth, we're solid, enduring, persistent, and loyal. And we just hold with whatever's happening. When the earth gets too big for us, too strong, what can happen is we'll start to use it to bury feelings, bury experiences, and bury with food. So it's kind of the opposite of the airy type that's rushing past and doesn't want to even put anything in our mouths. It's at that point, it's like, how do we get away from the kitchen? How do we do what we need to do? And I can connect with this in that in college, there were many different experiences happening, and I got into noshing big time, on the weekends. It'd be like, the next thing I knew, I had buried a lot of things with food. And there was a book called The Psychologist's Eat Anything Diet. And I just really loved it. It had lots of very practical ideas that they weren't about control. They were about opening to what is. And one of the specific tools they had was the mid-meal meander. And the mid-meal meander is if you're in the midst of an epic eating experience and you haven't really taken time to check out, well, am I still hungry? They suggest step away from the table, go outside if you can, head for the bathroom, brush your teeth. But anyway, take a moment to just see how, experience how you feel. And that was one of the things that really helped me kind of come back into an awareness of, wow, how I use earth matters here. And I could be a little more skillful than I am, So those would be some of the possibilities. The other thing I think about is to be open-minded, both for, I think, all the doshas, about being open-minded about what's good or bad. I've had a number of catastrophes this year, and what I'm realizing is what's good or what's bad isn't always what it looks like,
Right.
And so not to be too rushed in labeling how you're eating, just more like exploring how you're eating rather than labeling it.
Right.
And another one would be doing a cheat sheet, menus. I'm not a menu person, though I've made a lot of menus for others. But sometimes in the midst of stressful times, I've got one sheet that I've got on the bottom of my clipboard, and it's like, oh yeah, this is the food I like, and I could go.
Right.
Yeah. Those are some of the things I think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are there some drinks from your easy healing book that you would like to share with us that you think would be perfect for us at this time that we should be considering? doing in the kitchen?
Absolutely. And the first herb that came to mind was lemon balm. I don't know how many
Really?
people know lemon balm, but it's antiviral and it's great for mood. And I've got some right here. You can put a squirt of lemon balm tincture in your water with a little splash of lime. And it's excellent for harmonizing mood and also supporting immunity. Um, that the immune boosting CCFT is a coriander. Many people are familiar with equal parts coriander, cumin, and fennel. This one is a little bit jazzed up with some astragalus and turmeric and cardamom, and
Yeah.
a little bit of ginger. And
Mm.
it's there to both support our digestion and also strengthen our immunity. You can drink at room temperature or hot, depending on what's speaking to you. Um, a recipe I've recommended a lot over the last few months is the essential rasa tea. It's on my YouTube channel, Amadea Morningstar at Ayurveda Polarity Therapy and Yoga Institute, on how to make it. But it's really simple because you just put like fennel, fenugreek, ginger, peppermint in a jar, pour boiling water over it, let it sit for 30 minutes, and then strain it. I've jazzed it up for these times, and so I throw lemon balm and marshmallow root in there. Um, Marshmallow for that digestion, and lemon balm for the mood and antiviral. And so that recipe is in on my website, amadeamorningstar.net. I think the April 8th blog if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a rasa tea for our times. And for people who are listening who might not be familiar with the idea of rasa, rasa is our essential plasma. It's both our white blood cells and our plasma, the liquid serum. And it is when we get dehydrated, the rasa shrinks. We're like a puddle instead of a shining lake. So the rasa tea is there to improve our hydration, which then nourishes our immunity and also our mood. The the recipe that I thought of immediately for you, Abaya, Dr. Ladd has a cucumber drink that's really simple. He calls it cucumber delight, and you just take and it's not you take a half a cucumber peeled, and then a cup of either milk or organic almond milk, and you just blend it up with a little bit of coconut sugar and a pinch of cardamom. If you're not a sweet person and you're more like, wait, I'd like this salty, you could put, instead of the coconut sugar, you can put like a pinch of salt. But you just zip it up, and I was just amazed. It's like the cucumber is very refrigerant. It just brings down the temperature gloriously. And it's a fun, easy one. It takes 5 minutes to make. So
As soon as we get off, because I'm all out.
Right. Yeah.
I have a 6'3" former football player, former Marine, in the house with us at this time, and it's like I can't keep enough in the refrigerator. I make what I think is going to last at least a day. It's gone in one meal, and I'm like, wait a minute. So all the cucumbers are gone. So I'm going to go get some cucumbers. That's awesome.
Yeah. I grew up in a family of 6, and my 2 brothers are both 6'6", so I cannot. It's like, yeah. I
mean, I open the refrigerator expecting, I call it an ice box still. What can I tell you? But I open the ice box expecting to find something in there, and it's like gone. That's anyway.
But I guess a couple more drinks, the things that have omega-3s. So omega-3s are anti-inflammatory, they support mood, and they also help blood clotting. So in these times, in terms of coronavirus protection and prevention, omega-3s may be a big difference for us in terms of our health. And chia seeds, flax seeds, and hemp seeds are all excellent sources. You can soak those up and throw them into shakes and smoothies. And the Vata Classico shake is just, like banana, spices, almond milk, and chia, so it's a great texture, and you're also getting some support for your mood. There's a number.
Is there one drink, because I know several people are concerned about the condition of their lungs and wanting to keep the lungs healthy. Is there something that you can suggest in regard to that?
Yeah, there's two I think about. One is there's a heartfelt tea and a heartfelt smoothie that strengthens both the heart and the lungs. And then there's a pomegranate chia smoothie, which is very light. It's just pomegranate juice and some grapefruit juice and chia and cardamom and coriander. And you just zip it all up. If you're feeling like, wait, that's too sweet for me, you can dilute it with, water. So that one particularly is helpful for the lungs. There's also, I think it was YouTube that mentioned Tulsi even early on, like Tulsi thing in the morning. And that one, that would be a lovely one. But particularly those two, the ones that support the heart also support the lungs would be useful.
Gorgeous.
And things that are clearing. We talked about, as we were coming into this, I talked about mists.
Yes.
And that you can use essential oils as a mist that will moisten the air that the lungs are taking in, so that the lungs with corona, the lungs can get very dry. And so you want to be surrounded with as much moisture as possible. And that can be something as simple as a few drops of lemongrass essential oil, in a mister, or drops of lemon balm. The lemongrass and lemon balm are both antiviral and tend to be protective. They build our ojas, our immune cushion.
That's beautiful. I know that you're a huge fan of recommending to everybody to get out into nature. And I think especially now, it's really important for us to have that connection. And I think when we do, so many things can happen. But today, for instance, yesterday, I was looking up at the sky, and it is so piercing blue here right now. There are no chemtrails. There's none of that going on. And it's just, Mother Nature actually is really quite happy right now. She's giving us every hint that she can give us. Look, guys, this is really what it's about. I'm hoping that we take that hint. But would you like to elaborate on that at all? Because I know that nature is just such a key subject for you.
Yeah. I see nature as the key player here.
Yeah.
She's the key player. And there isn't there aren't separate issues around climate change and COVID-19 prevention. And from an Ayurvedic perspective, it's about balance. And when we can support a larger balance as well as the balance inside, then these things get addressed. I've really been struck by the people that seem the most resilient, in my experience, are the ones that are those of us who are lucky enough to be places where we can be outside, or we can be hiking, or and not everybody can do that. And I was struck by Durga Leela in her talk about yoga of recovery. She talked about asking for help, and that asking for help can be a phone call to a friend. It can also be asking for help in our dreams, or from a tree, say. We're not at the place, I've oftentimes said, hugs are tridoshic. And we're not at the place where there's much hugging happening. There's a real hug deprivation. And it's been said, go hug a tree. And what I would like to say is, ask that tree if it wants to be hugged. So in terms of connecting with nature, it really helps us look at who we are now. And I think Shauna McKay was also, you and Shauna were talking about identity and how much identity has shifted here. And our connections with nature and our connections with each other are all shifted. And I have to say, my identity as an American is shaken. That respect for nature is part of what I would like to see our country be about. And respect for one another and working with the whole planet. And at this point, that's not happening. If you go back to the dolphins, what I would say is that if I were to say two positive things about Americans, it's that we can be open and interested. And I have shame right now that we are not stepping up to the plate in the way that we need to as citizens of the planet. And so I would really invite us to be as open and interested and generous as we possibly can be. And part of that, going back to food and nature. And I've appreciated, I've been looking at your streams, and you've got like the food bank info and the farmers markets and how the kids, are growing food. And each of us is in different places with different needs. And yet, however we can engage our generosity and engage with food banks, some of us are going to volunteer, some of us may donate money, some of us will have the wisdom to know that we need to go to a food bank and get money or get food for our loved ones. So there's a lot of different ways to participate. And I just feel like I want to support that.
Yeah. There's something very, very beautiful about karma yoga. Some people call it seva. It never fails to lighten the heart and to lighten the spirit. It's such an amazing act in a sense. We don't have time for me to relay a story from Nishla Joy Devi about karma yoga, but it's one that maybe at some point we'll have time for me to share. But it's such a beautiful thing, and I know Durga speaks about it all the time with recovery, to go out and be with somebody else and help somebody else. And it's that time. It really is that time for all of us. I agree. Yeah.
There was many years ago, I was in a group question and answer with one of my teachers, Traga Rinpoche, and I said, "What happens if you find yourself in hell?" And he said, "Think of the others." And yeah.
It's interesting. There's a little story of a man who died, and he was asked, "Do you want to go to heaven or do you want to go to hell?" And he said, "Well, I've never been to either. I can't make up my mind. I don't know." And he said, "Okay, well, I'll take you down to hell and you can see hell." And he got into hell and he went through these incredible gates and this beautiful property and this huge room with this feast. Have you heard this one? Huge room with a feast. And everybody is sitting there and they've got these long, 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 long chopsticks. But nobody's eating. And he's like, "This is unbelievable. Can I see heaven?" And so he goes up to heaven, same gate, same property, same table, same feast, but they're feeding each other with the chopsticks because they can reach across the table with them. And that was the difference, right? So, yeah, so beautiful. Thank you.
And it's the same planet. Yeah, it's the same planet. Yeah, like we've gotten, like, may the food get where it needs to, because
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Amadea, what a treasure. You are a pioneer. I do want to say that I have put up here AmadeaMorningstar.net. If you're interested in consultations, you can reach out to her. Reach out to her blog, which I didn't write down here, and that would be what?
Same, AmadeaMorningstar.net/blog.
/blog makes it very simple. Thank you for making it so easy for us all the way around.
And then easyhealingdrinks.com.
Yay.
Which has both ebooks, which can be gotten anywhere on the planet very inexpensively, or else the flashy print book, which is all 4 seasons.
And I should probably add, because I know Amadea won't add this, that book was basically self-published. So you will be assisting them in their amazing endeavors. And the photography of this book is just gorgeous as well. Renee Lynn, she did such a beautiful job. So thank you for all you do for us. Thank you for who you are. We're all honored to be here with you, and somehow we're going to get through this. I know it. I just know we are, and it's going to be quite beautiful. Yeah, we just have to hold on to that. Thank you so much.
All back at you. Bye.
All right. Namaste to everybody. I will see you next Wednesday, I hope, when we greet Carrie Clasby, who is an intuitive forager. well known throughout the country, actually, by all of the chefs that come to her for the most bizarre things, and she finds them. And she single-handedly raised the bar of farmers markets here in Las Vegas. And that is a miracle in itself, because Las Vegas is very unique, very, very unique. So I hope you'll welcome her as well. But meanwhile, thank you again, Amadea. It's awesome to see you. I wish you well. I wish your family
everyone. Yeah.
stay healthy. Om Shanti, everybody.
Thank you.